And I'll start here. African immigrants choose to come to America for a variety of reasons, often driven by a combination of factors in their home countries. They call them push factors. And the perceived benefits and opportunities available in the United States of America. Conflict and persecution, poverty and unemployment, climate change and environmental degradation, lack of jobs, and economic and job opportunities. So I don't know if you guys been noticing, there's been an uproar in social media of people who are in the foundational Black American space, Black empowerment space, against people from Africa as well as the Caribbean who are part of the tether class. Now, granted, I want to make sure I make a clear distinction. This part of the video is, again, directed towards the African and Caribbean tether class, those who come over here, turn their nose up and state that they're doing so much better than Black Americans, that they're smarter, that they're more hardworking than Black Americans. We call them the tether class. That is what this portion of the video is contributed to. I'm not talking about anyone else from these countries who come over here, do their business, okay, pave a way for their family, come over here legally. Not talking about you guys. I'm talking about those who get on social media and just run their mouth and speak ill will about the Akatas, about the Jareers, about those people who they're smarter than. Let's talk about it. We call them tethers. The reason why we call them tethers, ladies and gentlemen, is because they come over here with a duplicity mindset of white colonization and the ideology of white supremacy. Yes, they do. Their lands in Africa are no longer colonized ever since the 1960s. Now, that doesn't mean that white supremacy does not reign supreme in African countries, because Western powers still have heavy influence in these African countries, where the people will say that, oh, our government is corrupt. All governments are corrupt, some more so than others, but all governments are corrupt. But you don't see Americans fleeing to other nations by the millions to change the demographics and to depress wages and to undermine a particular group. And this group is foundational Black Americans. Or where we're not like you, Akatas, because we come over here and we work hard. You work hard. And all the jobs in like the construction space, all the jobs in these different industries that you see people from other countries, majority of, do not forget, historically, Black Americans had these jobs. Black Americans were majority of the landscapers. Black Americans were the majority of the construction workers, us and the Italians. But by the way of the mafia and other white supremacists, we got boxed out of a lot of these industries. Service jobs. So Black Americans, we had to amalgamate ourselves to other skill sets, because we had all these service jobs, construction jobs, plumbers, electricians, welders. We had all of these jobs. Who have them now? Immigrants. Not because all of a sudden, oh, Black Americans are lazy, are they not? They're really unintelligent. They're really stupid. They're really low IQ people, are they not? All of a sudden, we're low IQ and we're lazy. Really? But no one's talking about the system of white supremacy and the barriers that they put in place. Now, you're going to have some people in my comment section talking about how this, that, and the other. I tend not to respond to this, or I'm just a smart ass in some regards, because I know that you know. There's laws on the books that prevented certain things and certain demographics. Think about the districting very quickly. I can use this as an example. How the GOP is redistricting the map lines of majority of neighborhoods that are Black and Latino in order for them to gain and upseat Democrats, because majority of the areas they're referring to mostly vote Democrat. And unfortunately, majority of those people are Black and Latino. What am I getting at? They are remapping and redistricting lines, because if you have an enclave of people, you have a community in an area where, let's say, 50% of the people are white and 50% of the people are Black and Latino, and you're going to have some white people that are going to vote for liberals, and then you have the majority of Black and Latinos that will vote for liberals, then thus that community, that area, that district will be Democratic. It will be blue. But if we redraw the line and then separate and put these people over where majority of Democrats already are, the vote will not be split, then these seats become Republican. It's that simple. Just redraw the lines. So the politicians are not, the politicians are picking their voters versus voters picking their politicians. Redlining at its best, is it not? Voter suppression at its best, is it not? And so when I look at the demographics and I look at the tether class, they don't understand the construction of America. They don't understand what Black Americans went through and what we still go through today until it happens to them. So let's talk about economic migration, because we're witnessing Africans and Caribbeans and, of course, other people from other countries. But this is what this is directed at, the tether class, arriving on our shores, flipping the narrative. I left poverty, climate decay. I came for opportunity. These are all fair reasons, is it not? In my opinion, absolutely not. But beneath that, there's often a rift, a silent undermining. Because I've heard it. We've come from countries not run by colonial powers anymore. We're intelligent. We're capable. We built our infrastructure back home. You did? Last time I checked, the Chinese built your infrastructure. Yet so often the conversation erases the legacy of Black Americans who did pave the roads, literally in America and figuratively in America, so that now others can walk it. It feels divisive, does it not? Because this is not in hate, ladies and gentlemen. This is not in hate. Our delineation is not concentrated in hate, but it is in culture, not the culture that people say we do not have, even though around the world, our culture is exploited. Our culture is revered. Our culture is celebrated and recognized, as if Black Americans haven't invented thousands of things. Lonnie Johnson, the super soaker, Garrett Morgan, the traffic signal, Marion Van Brown, the home security system. Open heart surgery, what about Dr. Daniel Hale Williams? I think it's important to talk about these things because if you don't know the achievement of one group, you may not admire them, you may not respect them. Blood bank foundations, Dr. Charles Drew. These pioneers didn't come here. They were born here and they built America's foundations. When we talk about math, engineering, space, medicine, there's no comparison. This isn't ignorance. This is truth. Have we forgot about the movie The Hidden Figures, or the story The Hidden Figures, about these beautiful, intelligent Black women who created algorithms for us to reach the moon? Have we forgotten about that? Have we forgot about Vivian Thomas, who was a medical assistant assisting a doctor at Johns Hopkins University Hospital, who he came up with the procedure to cure the blue baby syndrome? Look it up. All of these achievements of Black Americans in this country, but yet we have not achieved anything. We haven't contributed not only to the nation, but to the world. Yet some of these same voices we proudly say, as they look down on foundational Black Americans as if they're better. And again, I can't name every single country because there's just so many of these very few people I would like to believe that we call tethers that are very divisive. And thus they state that we are divisive and that we're spewing white supremacy ideology, even though they come from a country and or continent that have been colonized by European and Westerners. And that only were their countries colonized, the infrastructure, the government, the military, but also their mindsets. They say that they're from Haiti and Nigeria and Kenya and Jamaica and all these other countries. Because when they achieve things in America, they state that I'm a proud Jamaican immigrant. I'm a proud Nigerian immigrant. And that they celebrate their success. And fair enough. But when crime headline hit, suddenly it's just a Black person. And then we lose nuance, do we not? Because again, this is not about dislike, ladies and gentlemen. It's about historical recognition, acknowledging that foundational Black Americans carved paths, not because we fled oppression. We stood 10 toes down in oppression, and even to this day. because we are persistent with it. We're not fleers. And then to think that people, in some regard, share some of the same genealogy in some regards, they speak dismissively about it. That's a duplicity mindset. They're letting colonial mentality echo in their heads and also in their speech and thus in their actions. See, we're not asking for superiority. We're just saying, what about respect? Can we do that? Where's the disconnection here? That's not, see, and that's what we need to tether the truth with, quote unquote. So when people are referring to these diaspora wars, I make a very clear distinction that is not all the people from Africa, not all the people from the Caribbean. But unfortunately, there is enough to make head waves. And for people like myself who really kind of dialed back from this area to start to speak out against it, because not only is this backwards white supremacy rhetoric, but it's nonsense. Because we don't go to Africa. When I went to Ghana, South Africa, and Kenya, I didn't speak any ill will about those countries. Even when I did my vacation videos, which you guys know I do anytime I go somewhere. They were very beautiful and nice people there. Now, a lot of the country, unfortunately, where foreigners, by the way of, Italy, Great Britain, and other countries have colonized certain areas, their areas were immaculate, especially in South Africa. Those people whose ancestry derives from the Netherlands, the Dutch, also known as the Afrikaners, also known as the Boers in South Africa, they live on pristine beach property near Tabletop Mountain in South Africa. They're living their best lives. 90% of South Africa are dark melanated hue Africans. People from the Zulu, people who speak Xhosa and all these other different beautiful people, no less. But when you look at the entire country of Africa, the entire country have been colonized in one way or another, either by force or by mindset. Look at Northern Africa. They call Northern Africa the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. How? Because when you go to places like Morocco, Algeria, Libya, when you look at the northern part of these countries, people are white as snow. Some of them are olive color, but some of them are white as snow. Just look up a picture of Algerian. Now, supposedly these people migrated and conquered North Africa and took it as their own. Kind of reminds me of Israel, does it not? Very interesting. But nonetheless, people who come over here and speak ill will about Black Americans from Africa and the Caribbean, not all, I got to keep saying it because I know people are really short-minded about it. I just kind of look at them like this. Have you seen your country? So you're telling me that the top 10% of your country had enough money to come over here and in some regards do Uber and other businesses. Of course, you start businesses and then say, well, we come over here, we got better education and we have better jobs and we make more money and we're doing better than you guys. We're smarter, we work harder. And, it's very easy to judge the top 10% of one country against 100% of the population from another. But I can promise you this, for those tethers who speak in this manner, take your top 10% versus Black American, foundational Black Americans' top 10%. And I'll make you a bet, $1. Because we're broke, right? We're stupid. We're illiterate. We're really lazy. But I'll bet you $1 that we will outperform you 100 times over. And don't get me wrong, I understand why you had to flee to America in order to pave a way for economic opportunities. We call them economic refugees, economic asylum. I know why you did this, even though that your country is ran by your countrymen and women. I know why you had to flee to America. Is it because the tether class of these countries are cowards? Because it's really easy to say that my government is corrupt. Then what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm just going to flee to America. I'm going to flee to Europe. I'm going to flee to Australia. I'm just going to go where the governments are not as corrupt. But aren't you fleeing back to white mommy and white daddy? Because we haven't fled anyway. We've been here. We have been here prior to slave ships. And probably about 500,000 of us came on slave ships. Well, a lot of us have American Indian, Native American ancestry. It's even in our blood, no less. I checked my ancestry. I had 2%, not so much. But as I look at this, and you know what? And this is just a fun joke because we always get demonized and stereotyped that a lot of, Black Americans smoke marijuana. Well, Native Americans did too. They call it hemp. And that's just part of our bloodline. It's part of our religion, no less. Is it not? Like I said, it was a joke. But again, this is, again, directed towards the tether class. I just wanted to get off my chest because it's just funny to me that people come to this country and act if they're better, but they could not pave a way. They could not create opportunities in their own country. There you have it.